All right, we are live today, and I am super excited. It has been a long time since I've actually done an interview. I've been doing a lot of live streams, but I'm here doing an interview, and I'm super excited about my guest today. This is Dr. Nicole Hewitt, and we met under great circumstances. I met Nicole in Austin, Texas, and we were at the Healing Humanity meetup. We at a Brazilian steakhouse, and we ended up the only two left without a seat. And so the staff brought in a little table, and the two of us got to sit together, and we just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. And so I'm super excited that you're here, and you have got a great story, and you are and one of our carnivore doctors, and it has a brand new channel. So I'm so excited I get a chance. Hi, good to see you. I'm so glad I get a chance to let you share your story. So if you could I'm going to give you the screen. And if you want to share your story, your health story, and what led you to the carnivore diet, that'd be awesome.
Okay, thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be here. And I'm a little nervous because thank you for bearing with me. So, my story probably begins before I was even born. I was born with spina bifida occulta, which means that the spinous processes, the pokey points on the vertebrae at the bottom of my spine, didn't form. And so at the very bottom of my neural tube and the very top behind my
And your Wi-Fi, and I have to give a caveat. She doesn't have Wi-Fi, so we may be a little spotty.
there were already some neurological issues going on from birth that I
Okay.
did it.
Looks like your Wi-Fi is really bad right now. Let's see. Just keep going. Your Wi-Fi is actually your Wi-Fi was great when we were talking behind the scenes, and now your Wi-Fi is pretty
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You were kind of freezing up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I hear you now. Let's see if so I'm not sure how much you heard, but basically I was much later in life. And around 8, I started blacking out and I didn't know why. And I figured out around 12, I had a diving accident where I hit my neck on a diving board. And that trauma kind of set my life in a direction of a lot of pain, and that my parents took me to the chiropractor, and that's actually what eventually led me to chiropractic school, because the chiropractor saved my life back then. And I had and then some other injuries. And one thing that I've learned since then, trauma is a really common thing to make it come on, which I already had symptoms. And later on, I was diagnosed with dysautonomia, where the central nervous system, I was having some health issues, and I would black out a lot and be tired and fatigued. And my sister would always complain to my parents that I was faking it because I didn't want to help with yard work and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, and the fatigue got worse. My tiredness got worse. And about 22, I started really changing my diet, lifestyle. Do you have me still?
It's spotty,
Do
but
you still hear me?
yes. Yeah, it's spotty, but yes.
Okay. Okay. So I started in my early 20s changing my diet and really focusing on being healthy. And I still was really struggling. So I've, since my early 20s, I guess you could say I've tried every diet, eliminating everything, trying all kinds of things. And I've dealt with pretty much every health issue that is related to digestion and parasites that you can imagine. Parasites, which at one point, like I say, TMI, I had nothing but blood, no stool. At one
Mhm.
point, um, all my food would come out still looking like food, and I was just getting weaker and weaker. That was the first time I ever had an antibiotic, and it almost killed me. It made me very, very weak. That was probably 25 at that point, 26 maybe. And um, just, it was just a struggle. I was always ill. I was always tired, irritating, fevers where I would be in bed for 3 weeks at a time, and infections in my head where I would literally have this nasty foam that I would cough up, like tons of it, and ear infections, and this infection in my midbrain and my sphenoid sinus. And antibiotics don't even reach there. So I had at various times cut out meat, or really low meat, only eating meat as a condiment, thinking that maybe if I ate plenty of fruits and veggies that I would feel better. But none of it seemed to help. And all the while I was a chiropractor and I studied functional medicine. I did a specialty in functional medicine, the diplomated American Board of Chiropractic Internists. So I did that specialty, which is a 3-year specialty in internal diagnosis. And so
Mm.
here I am with all of these tools to diagnose, and all my tools say that I'm normal, but I am obviously not normal. So I can greatly empathize with the person who's been to all the doctors and they just tell them that they're normal and all their labs are normal and great, because I was looking at my own labs and saying, but I feel like utter hell, right?
Right.
And, very chemically sensitive, that person who would walk through the detergent aisle and get an immediate headache, very heat intolerant my whole life. It'd be 100 degrees outside and I wouldn't sweat, so I'd black out, or it'd be 30 degrees
Mm.
outside and I would be sweating and put ice packs on my clothes because I would literally be hot. So my temperature wouldn't regulate. Just so many different symptoms, and some of them just had no rhyme or reason. And things would come on really fast and then go away. I would put on 10 pounds in a week, literally 10 pounds in a week. And then I would just drop 10 pounds in 7 days just without trying. Couldn't exercise, couldn't do any physical activity. I still kind of struggle. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
It's off and on. Yes. Overall, I'm hearing you.
Can you hear me? You disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
You want to
Okay.
try?
So a ton.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. So I'm wondering if I should try
You want to try leaving and
to
coming
move.
back and seeing if it'll give you a better connection?
I'm good.
Do you want to try like leaving and coming back in and see if it'll give you a better connection? Okay. So sorry about that, guys. She's actually staying at a friend's house down in out in the country, about an hour outside of Austin, and has no Wi-Fi. So appreciate those of you who are here, and I'll probably download a recording and edit it and see if I can get a better flow to the conversation. So appreciate you being here, and hopefully we can work out the Wi-Fi issue. I know it makes it a little challenging, but she's got a great story, and from what I've learned about her from the time that we spent talking in Austin is that she spent quite a bit of time practicing down in South America. She may get to that, I'm not sure, but she's practicing down in South America. And one of the things that was so cool that I learned about her is that she never charged for her services. All of her services that she provided were donation only. And so she truly just wanted to help people. And yeah, so she would not charge for her services. She just accepted donations. And so it reminds me of the old fashioned doctors that would receive like a chicken or something in exchange for the service they provided. And I think that I seem to recall her saying that she did often get paid in non-monetary things like food, and that she managed to survive when she was there. So such a giving soul for sure. So I hope that she'll be able to work out the Wi-Fi issue or the lack of Wi-Fi issue. And if not, we will have to come back and like maybe schedule it and test out the connection a little bit better. So we'll see if she's able to come back. While we're waiting for her, she has a brand new channel. And so this is the name of her channel. It's called Dr. Nick Medicine Woman. Right now, she only has 2 videos. So show her some love, give her some more subscribers, and hopefully she's gonna be able to do a couple of some more videos. She is actually covering the practice of a friend of hers who has cancer. So she is there in Texas. She's came back from South America and because her friend has cancer and has needed somebody to cover her practice for her. So she's actually doing that down in Texas. And so hasn't had a ton of time to get her channel up and going, but show her some love. Dr. Nick Medicine Woman is her channel. Alrighty. And there she is. Got you back.
Okay. Let's try this one more time.
Awesome.
So sorry.
That's okay.
It wouldn't let me back in. Okay. So I don't know what you heard. I think
so you were sharing about, basically your journey with, trying to reduce meat, having the heat sensitivity, blacking out, having the dysautonomia, and also where you'd be blazing hot when it was cold when it was hot. Yeah, I think I caught a lot of it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, the short story is I had a bunch of random symptoms that didn't seem to have rhyme or reason or to go together. And they would come on really fast. They would disappear really fast. Strange things would make me feel better, like hoppy beer, which I found out that hops is a nervous system relaxant. And so the hops would calm down the rapid firing of my neurons, you know, so that hypersensibility of the neurons would get calmed if I just have like a quarter of a hoppy beer. And so my friends would joke that beer was my medicine and everything's backwards with me. I would, caffeine makes me feel better. Like a triple shot of espresso if I was going into an Alzheimer's seizure, because that's what I've learned caused me to start blacking out as a kid, was the absence seizures, that I'll just disappear and I might just be staring off into space and maybe I can hear you and I can't respond, or maybe I can't hear you. And so just all of these symptoms that plagued me my whole life and would kind of wax and wane, but never completely be gone, especially what I know now to be POTS, the postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where I would stand up and my blood pressure would fall, and out of nowhere, my heart rate would just, I'm just sitting here and it'll shoot to 120. And so these kinds of things would happen to me almost daily for parts of my life. And then in 2009, it got so bad that I went to Colombia and stayed with some of my ex-husband's family and in Bogota. And I saw all kinds of people. I mean, I didn't care if they were swinging crystals or if they were a medical doctor. You know, I just saw everything I could find. And through that process, I actually encountered Ayurveda for the first time and ended up being able to study some Ayurveda. And I've even gone to India and done some study with that. And one thing I've learned through my journey is the worst things that have ever happened to me in my life have definitely ended up being the best. Those are the things that have taught me the most. And I'm very aware that I've been allowed to suffer in my body so that I would learn. And I know that I've been able to help people because of the journey I've had in my body. And so in some strange way, it kind of makes it okay. I don't really get as frustrated as I used to because I know it's gonna pass. Whatever I'm going through is gonna eventually be over. So when I was in Colombia, I went to a cardiologist and he did a tilt test on me. And for 2009, it was something that not a lot of people were doing. And he just happened to be one of the world leaders in studying dysautonomia back then. And at that time, there were only, I think I read there were only 36 confirmed cases in the US. And so we've really advanced since then in diagnostics. And so he's the one who, this cardiologist told me, never take an over-the-counter medication, never drink alcohol. And he said I had to do yoga every day, and I'd never done yoga. And so he actually was the one who got me interested in that, because at that time there were no known medications. And thankfully I found him and started doing yoga, eventually ended up doing a teacher training and teaching yoga, which I absolutely love. And so that was the first thing I found that really started to help balance my nervous system. And I also knew from childhood that certain foods would bother me. So that was another thing, like MSG. Yeah, that was the one thing I knew would set me into an absence seizure, an Alzheimer's seizure. I would just disappear anytime I had anything with MSG. So for decades now, I've avoided most restaurant food and had to be really, really picky with what I eat. And then at some point I decided to go vegan. I thought, well, maybe it's the meat. And the reason why I thought maybe it was the meat is because throughout my life, as far back as I can remember, anytime I had eaten meat, I would get ravishingly hungry. Like I would eat a huge steak and 30 minutes later, I would feel like I was literally starving to death. And so I thought, well, maybe that's a problem. And I'm living in Costa Rica with all this fresh food. So a lot of days would eat a papaya for breakfast and a papaya for dinner. And now I know what's one of the highest histamine foods you can eat? Papaya. So that was one of the pieces to the puzzle. And um, so being vegan, I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and things were just different symptoms, more infections, more weeks at a time in bed with infections in my brain and fever, these horrible fevers. So in 2022, I remember I was in Mexico City by myself, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had all the symptoms of a heart attack.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was lucky to get my mom on the phone. She just happened to be up in the middle of the night, went to use the restroom and had her phone on her. And so she talked to me for a couple of hours. And, being in that state, I couldn't think of what I needed for myself. So she was able to talk me through some things. I can't even remember what all it was, but and I wasn't freaked out. I'm pretty calm. And so I was just breathing and trying to get my heart rate down. But I had the pain in my chest and really bad pain in my neck and just in my arms, all of those symptoms. And that was, and I had been very, very swollen in my body. And I'd been vegan. But I'd
Yeah.
been doing kind of a dirty vegan. I had been traveling with a friend, and we'd go to really nice restaurants and everything. And I was eating at all of the trendy vegan restaurants. And obviously it wasn't just veganism that was going to help me. So fast forward to a year later, April of 2023, I was in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I had another bout of just getting very ill. And um, at this point, I got so bad I remember I was sick in bed for about 5 days with a fever. And I got so ill that I was vomiting and vomiting, even water. I couldn't hold anything down. And I decided to go get my gallbladder checked. Just found on my gallbladder, and it literally said there was gallbladder sludge.
Mhm.
So at this time I was actually in the Yucatan Peninsula at this time in a little town. And it was hard to find beet greens, but from my functional medicine history, we learned that beet greens were it's one of the best things you can do for gallbladder sludge, even though they also teach that greens will cause gallbladder problems. So it's kind of one of those things that doesn't really make sense, but I'm going to try anything. So I love
Yeah.
to ferment. I ferment everything. So when I found the beet greens at the market, I fermented them to potentiate the medicine to make it stronger. So when they were ready, I ate a tiny little bitty piece of fermented beet green. Within 2 seconds, I had a hot flash over my whole body, which at that point I was thinking oxalates. And then within 10 seconds, I had pain in every joint. And I had
Yeah,
already
and
had,
fermented, and as you know, fermented is also high histamine.
right. And at that time, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I had also
So
read, uh-huh.
looking back, do you think it was oxalates or do you think it was a histamine response?
I think it's both,
Hmm.
because I had a kidney stone when I was maybe 24, 25. I remember living in Ecuador and having this, it was a horrible, horrible experience. So obviously if there were kidney stones, then there were also oxalate buildup. 80% of kidney stones are calcium oxalate. The body recognizes the oxalate as a poison and pulls calcium out of the bone to bind to the oxalate and carry it out of the body, where it can get stuck in the kidney tubules because they're so tiny. And I was also having the gallbladder stuff. So there could have been some small gallstones, which who knows could have been the same thing. But now I do know, yeah, and looking at everything. And even my kombucha that I would make, a lot of times it would give me horrible body pain. So now I
Mm.
know that. And couldn't eat bone broth. I was like, why can't I eat bone broth? I'm trying to tell everybody. Even though I was vegan, for periods, I would tell everybody else, you can't be vegan. It's not healthy. Yeah, don't listen. Don't look at what I do. This is me. I'm doing things differently. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And I would try to get everybody to eat bone broth. Even vegans, I would convert them. But I knew that it hurt me. It just caused me horrible body pain. So yeah, the histamines were definitely an issue.
Yeah,
And
I can't eat bone
so,
broth. I can't because of the histamine.
yeah, and it's also really high in glutamate. If you
Mm.
cook it over 20 hours, which same reason I can't eat chicken, high in glutamate, it gives me body pain.
I wonder if that's why I can't eat chicken.
Does it give you?
Because well, it doesn't, I don't know if it gives me pain, but because I haven't, like the biggest reaction I have is it makes my throat swell, but it's not every time I eat chicken. So I don't know if it's like if I do better if it's organic or heirloom chicken
Mm.
versus, the other like hybrid chicken that's pretty commonly sold. I haven't quite figured it out what it is that's the problem, but that might be a hint for me.
Yeah, the glutamate, it's also really high in omega-6 fatty acids. We
Okay.
want a good omega-3, omega-6 ratio. And so I think some people suffer with that. But I've even had chicken that, when I was in Costa Rica, people would pay me with food, and sometimes people would bring me a chicken. And even that would, raised very healthily, would still cause me pain.
Mm.
So, but yeah, it's worth trying eating the freshest possible, the cleanest possible, and seeing.
Yeah, I've just been avoiding chicken altogether.
Yeah, me too. I can't handle
Yeah.
it. We're the
Yeah.
canaries in the coal mine.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so you're finding out these things. It sounds like you're gradually making some connections.
Right. So when that happened in Mexico and with the beet green, and I thought oxalates, I started doing more research, and very quickly in my research, I found Sally Kay Norton and her book,
Mhm.
Toxic Superfoods. And I think one of the first people I came across was Lily Kane
Uh-huh.
and her channel, and Dr. Chafee. And I started watching these carnivore channels, and I'm like, oh my God. And I found Carrie and Homestead How, and I started watching these, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all these symptoms. So I remember I couldn't eat. I couldn't even hold down water. And so I was just, I had gotten to where I could eat some sprouts, cherry tomatoes, and then a little bit of my fermented cabbage. And that's like all I would eat. Maybe a little bit of avocado, and I could handle that somehow. And I was eating like that for a while until I figured out, oh, watching these channels, maybe I'll just stop the vegetables altogether. And just from one day to the next, I went from being vegan to being 100%. Well, I completely quit vegetables. And
Okay.
for me, that was a big deal. And I had a really hard time getting off the fruit because I was so ill. And, sugar is very, very addictive. And I think that that's why it was so hard for me to get off of, is probably fungus or bacteria in my system that was living on that sugar in the fruit. And so probably I would say it took about 6 months for me to get all of the fruit out of my diet completely. And, I was weaning off, and I would just have a tiny bit here, a tiny bit there. And then around December of last year, December of 2023, I was completely, it took me from about May to December to completely get off of
Okay.
fruit. And then I went completely carnivore. And I noticed whenever I would try to do just lion only meat, I would feel horrible and weak. And so I started adding in about a cup of high protein, high fat yogurt. And I just would feel amazing on that. So I just need the tiniest bit of sugar. And one thing I didn't mention that had started happening a couple of years ago that was one of the most scary symptoms for me. And it started in December of 2022. I remember I was in Oaxaca. I can remember what was going on in my body by where I was.
Well,
I
you
was in Oaxaca.
traveled a ton.
Yeah, a ton. And I was having pain in my feet and my legs. And the pain was so bad that I'd get up in the morning and I could barely walk. And then I started having all of these symptoms that were the symptoms of MS. And my brother supposedly had MS. And so I was like, well, this is pretty serious. And that was actually what made me get really serious about the carnivore whenever it clicked to me. I was like, okay, well, I saw Michaela Peterson might have been the first thing I saw.
Oh, yeah.
Her TED Talk. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, I've got to try this. And I also hadn't been sleeping for a couple of years. And when I say I wasn't sleeping, I mean, I didn't sleep at all for long periods of time. And I think
Wow.
that's what affected my heart. And I was like getting swollen and just, yeah, it was really not good. And I was looking really old. You can look at, I have some pictures that were from a couple of years ago versus now. I really feel like I'm aging in reverse.
Yeah.
And so then my hands started hurting like my feet. And I'm like, no, this isn't okay. And that's what actually made me decide, okay, I have to just not do the fruit or anything. And when I got really serious about it, it was even just quitting the vegetables. It was about a week and I started sleeping for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, for the first time in a really long time, I started sleeping. So my body was able to heal because we mostly heal when we're asleep. And then within weeks, the pain was greatly diminished in my body. And the pain just kept going down and down and down. And I would feel pretty good. And so I would be like, okay, I can try a piece of watermelon. And then I would get that arthritis in my knee that I had from 4 ski accidents, right? And I would always have that arthritis in my knee. Well, now I only get that arthritis in my knee if I eat a plant.
Interesting.
Or I'm the horrible pain in my neck or really bad sleep. If I try to add anything into my diet, or say I go get barbecue and it has black pepper, I'm probably not going to sleep that night.
Oh,
Just the
yeah.
enzyme in my system. So it's literally been a
Yeah.
miracle.
And I can't eat black pepper either. I mean, I'm assuming it's because it's high histamine. I do fine with white pepper, which is low histamine, but cannot do black pepper.
It's also one of the highest oxalate foods.
Interesting. So you got a double whammy with black pepper. So if you're watching this and you're using black pepper on your food and you're still having symptoms, maybe try switching over to white pepper or completely avoiding the pepper. But I know white pepper, I do fine with white pepper.
That's great.
But yeah, do you know if white pepper has a lot of oxalates?
I don't think it does, but
Yeah,
don't
it's
quote me on
interesting.
that. But I think it is. I don't know if it has them or not.
Yeah, I haven't looked it up from an oxalate standpoint, but I've definitely looked it up from a histamine standpoint for sure. But yeah, interesting. So you mentioned that as a child, did you have intestinal parasites
As a
or in
child,
parasites?
I don't really know. I wasn't diagnosed, but I did have a lot of symptoms, a lot of ear infections and things. And I grew up in the country. I mean, eating mud
Okay.
pies and playing in the front ditch water and climbing trees
Yeah.
and always barefoot. Who knows? I'm certain I had parasites.
Yeah. So did you ever do like a detox?
So I've had to take very, very harsh drugs
Okay.
because I almost died of parasites, right? Like I remember when I was in Ecuador it was 2023. I mean, not 2003. It's been
Okay.
21 years ago. Um, I whenever I woke up one day and had no stool, but it was just like a water faucet of blood coming out of me when I went to the restroom that morning. And so I went to a GI specialist and he did a colonoscopy. I was 25, 20,
Okay.
I was 25, 26, and maybe 26. And he, 10 seconds in, and he said, "Oh, you have amoebas." I said, "How do you know?" And he said, "You have holes in your colon." I'm like, "Oh."
Mm.
So I had developed ulcerative colitis, and it took about 6 years for me to heal. And that's actually why I did the DABC specialty, the internal medicine specialty, is because
Okay.
a friend of mine, one of my mentors, had done that specialty, and he saved my life. He literally saved my life. I wouldn't be here without him. And I'm like, I want to do what you do. And that was back in
Yeah.
2003. So I immediately started, as soon as I got strong enough, I started that specialty. And
Okay.
like, this, I have to do this. This is really cool.
So, so how did that specialty lend itself to the work you do with patients?
So initially, I had a functional medicine practice after doing that. So I converted my chiropractic practice. My patients, they would come to me for both, for chiropractic and functional medicine. So basically, I was seeing just about everything. At that time, the law was a little different in Texas. It's changed where now they've made it where they discriminate, and I can't diagnose anything but musculoskeletal now. But then I could diagnose anything, and I can still do the
Mm.
blood work and be affiliated with labs, but I'm not supposed to make an official diagnosis. So that's
Mm.
one reason why I've lived in Latin America so much. I have a lot of liberty to do what I want to do
Okay.
and to really help people. And so in Costa Rica, I've even delivered some babies in the jungle at home,
Wow.
just everything between headaches and, pretty much anything you can think. And kind of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, that's kind of my namesake, the Dr. Nick Medicine Woman. It's the backwards of Quinn, Nick. And so I
Yeah,
just kind
there
of
you
play
go.
on that. And yeah, it's so very rewarding being able to help people. And as I've mentioned to you, being able to help people without an expectation of financial
Yeah.
remuneration. Like there has to be an exchange whenever I work with people, but it doesn't necessarily have to be money.
Yeah.
In those cases, unfortunately, the U.S. I mean, I guess somebody could trade me and cut my hair or whatever, but there aren't as many opportunities for barter here. But that's really how I prefer to work. I grew up that way, and I think that that's the way that we should be. That's I think a healthier society, and I would really like to see society go more that direction. So I don't
Yeah,
ever charge.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't ever charge for when I work in somebody else's office like I'm doing right now. I have to charge, but when I do
Mm.
my work, I never have a fee because I think medicine has become a mafia, and
Mm.
everyone deserves good health care. And so whatever it is, if anything I have for a patient, then money is never the reason they don't receive whatever it is I might have for them. And
Wow.
so, and the people who can pay make up for the people who can't. And like I tell
Right.
people, it's whatever value they find in the help that I give them. So.
So since you've been can change your diet over to a carnivore diet, have you had a lot of light bulbs go on with how you how you see your patients?
Definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, it's very different actually, because uh, I would look at meat before as a condiment, and I would preach that it should be eaten as a condiment. And even though we're taught in school that these plant toxins certain issues, we're still taught that that's what you're supposed to eat.
Hmm.
And it just didn't click to me that that could have been making me ill. I know, for example, if I were to eat a green smoothie, I would feel horrible. I would never, even as a vegan, I couldn't do green smoothies. My blood pressure would fall, and I would
Mm.
literally feel the energy, like the life blood just draining from my body, and I felt like I was gonna die.
Wow.
So
So do you have any theories or ideas about why some people are extra sensitive to vegetables and fruits and other people seem to be okay with them?
vegetables and fruits, or
And or
is that what you said?
yeah, vegetables and or fruits. Some people do well with them or seem to do well with them and other people just can't do them.
Well, we're all different, right? And we all have a different experience of the world. I know that, for example, in dysautonomia, head trauma and concussions are one of the big onsets. And if somebody does have dysautonomia, then everything's going to be affected, especially the digestion, because the vagus nerve, that 10th cranial nerve, supplies the heart, the lungs, and digestion.
Right.
And so I know that one of the first things that started happening for me after I had that diving accident at 12 was a vasovagal response where every time I would rinse my hair, I would black out or almost black out. I'd
Mm.
end up on the floor to not black out, just black spots. And I even developed shortly after dermographism, where I could write on my skin and I'd have hives, wheals, hives all over my body. So it was after that. So I think that the messing up my nervous system actually affected my immune system. And
Yeah.
so it would be really interesting to see how many people who have had head trauma or major falls, and it might even be a pratfall, like a fall on the butt that hurts the coccyx or something, anywhere on the spine, falling out of a tree and landing on your back. But especially head trauma, I think it'd be really interesting to see the correlation between head trauma and dysautonomia and POTS. And one
That's
other thing,
interesting. That's interesting you say that because when I was I don't remember how old I was, but I was maybe middle school age. I fell down and landed on my coccyx on the wheel of a roller skate. And I was in pain for weeks. And it took a long time to recover from that. And of course, I grew up in a family that, my dad was military and they were depression era. They never took me to the doctor. And so never ever got it evaluated. I just bit the bullet and dealt with it. I don't even know if I told my parents, but now here, then as later as an adult, here I am, all these issues. And your symptoms also sound like mast cell activation syndrome, especially, you've got the dermographism, and I can never pronounce it, but for those who don't know what that is, like if you can like scratch your skin and it leaves a big mark, like a mark there, it doesn't going to go away. That's very common. Not everybody with MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, has that. Like I don't, but I have MCAS. But have you been evaluated, or do you think that you might have mast cell activation syndrome in addition to your other issues?
I think I probably have dealt with that. I have not evaluated myself. but I don't, just because I don't see a reason to. I know what's going on, and I really don't
Yeah.
like to stick needles in me if I don't have to. Anymore, I don't even do, I mean, I still do blood work on people. Laboratory diagnosis is my specialty, so I enjoy reading blood work, but I know now that symptoms are that the United States, like the Medical Nursing Association says that 84% of a diagnosis is based on symptoms, and I believe that. Having a good conversation with somebody, you know, if I'm going to have a functional medicine consult with somebody, it takes an hour to sit down and
Yeah.
really not only get all the information, but gain their trust so that they'll tell me the truth, right? Somebody has to feel comfortable to actually say, oh, by the way, I'm having this, or something that they think is completely unrelated. You know, the
Right.
every day, for example, almost every day in practice, somebody comes in with a right shoulder pain, and I go to their gallbladder and milk their gallbladder, and all of a sudden the shoulder pain goes away because gallbladder
Mm,
refers to right shoulder. So there's so many
right.
things like that we just have to ask the body, and it takes time.
Yeah, and I know that there's so many people, I mean, and I know this too from my background as in nursing and doing assessments on patients, that they forget their symptoms because they've just learned to live with them and figure it's normal. It's not a sign that there's anything wrong. It's just, this is just aging, and everybody deals with these things. And so if you don't ask the question, you're not going to get the answer. And a lot of times you ask questions. I can't tell you how many times when I've been assessing patients where I'll ask a question and they're like, oh my gosh, no one's ever asked me that before. And now that you mention it, yes, I do have that. I would imagine if you're doing an hour long, consult with people, you probably come across that a lot.
A ton, a ton. And, it's impossible to ask the same question to every patient, right?
Right.
So it depends on what answers, as you know, assessing people, it depends on what answers they give to certain basic questions, which route we go down.
Right. It triggers you to chase a rabbit hole, go down a rabbit hole. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So interesting. So since you decided to just cut out the vegetables and the fruit, and you made that transition, finally cut the fruit out, how is what changes have you noticed?
I've noticed quite a bit of weight loss. I'm sorry, quite a bit of weight loss,
Okay.
and it's mostly swelling. I had
Mm.
developed over the last few years some, like, the mom arms, and they just literally melted away. And
Wow.
my hair is a lot healthier. My brain, I can focus like when I was 20. I mean, my
Oh,
focus is amazing. One thing that has not gotten better, which I had malaria when I lived in the Amazon jungle in 2016. I almost didn't make it out of there.
wow.
And the medications that I had to take for the malaria took my vision. I couldn't see while I was taking them. You've heard of
Okay.
hydroxychloroquine?
Oh, yeah.
So basically, they sent all the chloroquine to the Amazon, unfortunately, which is
Oh,
very liver toxic, and it's not
okay.
hydroxylated. So when they hydroxylate it, added an OH group to it, then it makes it not so toxic for the liver. But I took the chloroquine and primaquine, and it did quite a bit of damage to both my liver and some different organ systems, but and maybe my pancreas and spleen. But the liver, for example, in Ayurveda, that's where our vision is related to the third chakra, because it's our solar plexus.
Yeah.
The light, the sunshine. That's
The
the
light, right.
light is the element associated with that energy center, which is the solar plexus, which it's the gastric nerves, and like all of the trans everything gets transformed there in our gut. And so in Ayurvedic medicine from India, which is the oldest medicine in the world, they say that is light and vision is associated with it. So it makes sense that it took my vision because it made my liver and my digestive system really weak.
Okay.
And
So did you recover your vision?
It has not recovered. That's the one thing that I'm still hoping will see improvement. My vision has not gotten better. I've had some weird things happen with it in the last year even, but hopefully it's just part of a healing process. There have been so many things that have gotten better, like the pain in my feet, I almost never get. I will tell you that I have had some relapses that are not related to food, but related to stress coming. So the last, since 2008, I haven't been in any one place longer than 3 months, except with traveling, except when the world shut down for COVID. And I was in Costa Rica in the jungle playing Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. So I've literally lived traveling and working and helping people along the way in all over the world, mostly in Latin America. But I forgot what I was going to say. You said
the stress. You were talking about the stress and the relapses from stress.
So this year in April, I was in Mexico. I got my Mexican residency a couple of years ago. So I've been traveling around Mexico looking for where I might want to have a home base there. And a friend of mine here in Texas contacted me. I've covered her office, vacation coverage and such, since 2015. So I'm familiar with her practice. And she was diagnosed with cancer and she had closed her office. And I said, absolutely not. I'll be there next week. So I hopped on a plane and I've been here since April working and going from the slow lifestyle that I've lived where I work, but I work intermittently and I don't work to live. You know, I just work along the way to pay my way. Going from that to an office where I'm busy and seeing a lot of people. After about a month of that, my body started to shut down. And the day before I met you, I had the first seizure that I've had in like a year.
Oh, wow.
And so the day I met you, it was June 1st. And the day before that, the day I saw you, like I wasn't doing great that day. But I know it was the stress, which is also regulated by our nervous system, right? And
that's right.
The stress is just as important as the food to be vigilant of. And so I've really recognized I just can't work that much. I can't push my body that much. And what I do here in this office, it's very physical. It takes a lot of emotional strength. It takes a lot of intellectual and a lot of physical strength. And so I really have not, I'm a lot stronger than I was 3 years ago. I couldn't have ever worked how I'm working right now 3 years ago. And even though now I'm only working 3 days a week, at least I can do that. Like I am so much stronger. People who knew me before are like, oh my gosh, wow, you're working. That's great. Because I would literally, every time I'd stand up, I would just want to pass out.
So that's improved. So the POTS, it sounds like the POTS has improved.
Oh, hugely. Yeah. I mean, I still will get dizzy sometimes. And people who haven't known me that long think it's really bad. I'm like, it's okay. I'll be fine. This is nothing. Like, yeah, I don't feel great, but it's okay. You know, it's not the end of the world.
I have the exact same thing because I have orthostatic intolerance and I do still get dizzy, but I have absolutely improved for sure. And, but yeah, I'll mention that I'm a little dizzy. People will get worried and I'm like, you know, that's no big deal.
One other thing is when I do dysregulate, I heal much faster. I'm not down for days and days at a time. Maybe I will get a headache from the low pressure system or something, but the next day I'm fine. I'm not in bed for a week. and I don't get I might get a little, I haven't even been getting, I haven't gotten fevers, I don't think. Anything that comes on, my body just recuperates fast. It doesn't take 3 weeks, which is a
Yeah.
huge change. So I've only been strict for 7, 8 months, like super, super
Okay.
strict. And I've only quit the vegetables a year and a half ago almost. So
Okay.
I'm thinking, if I were looking at me as a patient, I would say give it 2 years. And so
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see where I'll be in a year from now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It just, I know today is my official 14-month anniversary of starting the carnivore diet. And it keeps getting better. And I know things that I was still dealing with 2 months ago, I can see improvement. And it seems like every month there's things get better and better and better. So it just, yeah, you got to give it the time to heal for sure. And how do you think you've been experiencing any symptoms of oxalate dumping?
I've kind of thought about that, but since it's such an obscure diagnosis, I really don't know. How do I know that it's oxalate dumping?
Right.
So it's certainly possible. Would stress bring on oxalate dumping? I don't know. I just know that I've been very clean. Every now and then I'll introduce something to see what happens. Last week, it'd been a long time since I'd tried to introduce anything. And so I actually introduced a few blueberries. And
Okay.
I think it brought back the pain in my feet, and I didn't sleep as well. So no blueberries.
Wow.
But I figure I've got
Wow.
to try a little bit of here and there just to see what happens. If nothing else,
Right.
just
You
to
don't
trigger
know.
myself.
And that's good science, right? I mean, you take something away and you get better. And the way to test it is to add it back and see if you get worse.
One at a time.
So yes, one thing at a time. But yeah, but that's just good science to test it out like that.
And you
Yeah.
made the comment that a lot of people don't remember how they felt. And I know that I'm that way. Like, I know I've had these issues, but I can't just sit here and tell you exactly the evolution of everything. So I have made it a practice for years, actually, probably 20 years, probably. I keep it in my journal. When I start having
Mhm.
symptoms, I'll write it down. And so I have a running in where I make my scheduling, I write everything down. I have a space where I will write how I slept. I will write if I ate anything different, if I had any new symptoms, or if I had a really great day, or if I didn't eat. Like today, I had a morning of patience. I didn't eat anything till 2:30 today, and I was fine. I was
Yeah.
tired, but I was fine. And there was
Yeah.
even a time, before when I went carnivore, if you had talked to me about fasting, I would have given you a whole harangue about how it's not good for women to fast. And now I know it was just that I was so imbalanced and my blood sugar was so dysregulated. And so now that I am not protein deficient anymore. Oh, and that's what I also didn't finish that story about not being able to eat, that every time I'd eat meat, I would be starving in my whole
Right.
life. Well,
Right.
now I realize that I was starving because my body's going, where's the beef? Like, give me more.
Oh,
And it
okay.
doesn't
So
happen
it
anymore.
triggered your hunger hormones basically to actually be like, "Oh, you're finally feeding me. I want more."
Because I was so deficient.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
makes
I
sense.
felt myself get stronger. I literally felt my bones get heavier whenever I started eating a lot of meat. I had broken so many bones in my body just by barely touching them to something. And now, I mean, I've had a couple of months ago, I had a horrible fall and hit my arm on the side of a step, and it scraped and bruised so bad, and I couldn't even feel my fingers, and it didn't break anything.
Okay, that's good. Well, I use a body composition scale, and I started out in the low, kind of the middle of the low range for bone density. And I've gained 2 pounds of bone. So I'm in the middle of the normal range now for bone density with the carnivore diet. And I hadn't gained any bone for months. And then today, when I weighed in, I gained another 0.2 pounds of bone. So I know that the carnivore diet is wonderful for helping with bone density. So you probably are experiencing the same things that I've experienced.
Exactly. And so
So
few people, I think, are aware of the importance of protein in bone
yeah.
density. You know, it's collagen. Collagen comes from animals.
Yeah. So with fasting,
Yeah. That it's a protein.
would you recommend people to not fast at the beginning when they're first healing, or or too fast, or does it depend on the person?
So I don't recommend fasting if it sounds like murder. I think that your body will tell you when it's ready to fast. The first time that I
Okay.
did a fast in my whole life that was more than 20, I'd done 24-hour fasts before,
Okay.
but I could never go more than that without getting horrible headaches. This
Okay.
year in March, I got to the point where it was kind of interesting. Every time I would eat, I would feel a little sick. And I'm like,
Mm.
I feel great until I eat, and then I feel awful. So I took it as a
Okay.
sign that my body was telling me not to eat. So I decided, I woke up one day and I'm like, I'm not hungry. I feel amazing. I'm not going to eat. So the
Okay.
day ended and I still hadn't eaten. I woke up the next day. I wasn't hungry. Maybe a little bit of a tummy, whatever, but not real hunger. So I didn't eat. I felt probably better than I felt in my entire life that second day. I
Mm.
felt amazing. And then the third day I woke up and I'm like, I think I can keep going. I'm okay. And then I ate at the end of the third day and I was fine.
Okay.
So I think that the body will tell you. I don't think fasting should be hard. And
Okay.
I think that you need to be really, really well nourished. And I think the idea of feasting and fasting is a really good one. I don't stuff myself. I don't make myself eat if I'm not hungry, but I will tell you, if I don't eat enough, my hair starts falling out. So
Mhm.
it can sometimes be hard for me to get enough food because I'm 120, but in the mornings I'm 124.4 pounds most days, right? I'm between
Okay.
124.4 and 125.4 in the morning.
Okay.
And I eat about 1.5 to 2 pounds of meat a day. I
Okay.
mean, I eat a lot of food. And if I only eat 1 pound, then consistently, then my hair will start to fall out, or else my muscles will start to hurt. I'll start to just not feel very well. I need a lot of food, probably 150 grams of protein a day. Um,
Okay.
and I also notice, like I said about the yogurt, if I have a little bit of high protein, high fat yogurt, just a tiny little cup, less than a cup probably, it just makes me feel better. And I'm not sure if it's the little
Interesting.
bit of sugar in there, and it's yogurt supposedly high histamine, but it does not seem to give me a bad effect. And the other thing that doesn't seem to have a negative effect on me is coffee. I've tried not drinking it. I'm fine if I don't drink it. I don't get a headache if I don't drink it. But I do notice the reason why I always did drink coffee is because it acts as an anti-inflammatory in my body and I have less pain.
Yeah.
So I really personally feel like I've had nothing but good effects from coffee. So I don't know.
Well, that's good. Now, do you do you add fat? Like, do you butter or any other added fats, or do you just eat fatty meats? Like, what all do you eat?
I eat sometimes if I want a second coffee in the day, I will put a good amount of butter in that and blend it and make myself a better coffee.
Mhm.
Which I couldn't do before carnivore because it would make me nauseated. So I actually had to, at the very beginning of Carnivore, I did a cleanse where with castor oil, like a quarter of a cup of castor oil and coffee. It's like, but it like got all this black gunk out of my colon, just totally cleaned my colon out. And ever since I got the sludge, that helped get the sludge out of my gallbladder. And
Okay.
ever since I did that, I can handle the liquidy fat because I couldn't before.
Okay.
So I will do added fat sometimes in my coffee, not every day. I live on chuck roasts. So
Oh,
I will get the nice fatty chuck roast. They call it the poor man's ribeye. And I just sear it on high and on all sides. And like Dr. Kiltz, when I met him at the Carnivore meetup, he told me to just do black and blue. And sometimes I would do that. Well, I also like it just raw. Honestly, I'll just cube it up into tiny little cubes and cube cold butter in with it and put a lot of salt and just eat
okay.
it cold raw. I really like it like that, and my body really likes it like that.
Yeah, I remember him telling you that you should be more on the raw side.
Mhm. And so
Do you
the
know
black,
why he recommended that for you?
because I was still having some issues. I had that incident, that Alzheimer's seizure the day before, and I was asking him, why is this happening? And I hadn't directly related it to the stress yet because I was kind of still in the middle of all that stress. But it's true. If I just the steaks I get are like 2 inches thick, and I'll sear it for just a few minutes on each side until it's done, and I then it's raw in the middle. So what I'll do is I'll to keep the histamine from building up, I'll take it out at night, put it in the freezer, from the freezer to the fridge. And in the morning, it's still cold and even maybe sometimes not completely thawed in the middle. And I think that that's important for me because, the histidine turns into histamine because of bacteria in the food. And so that's what
Yeah.
makes it inflammatory. So I figure the shorter amount of time that it's unfrozen, the better. So I will sear it while it's still maybe not completely thawed. It's mostly thawed, but like I say, it's 2 inches thick. And then I slice it up into bite-sized little pieces. Otherwise, I can't chew it because it's kind of chewy because it's kind of raw, but it's delicious. It's so great. And I do not add any fat. It's a nice fatty piece of meat.
Good. Okay.
So no, I don't add any fat. And then I have the yogurt and pork. Remember I was talking about thiamine before? I've incorporated pork more into my diet. I've found a good source for clean local pork. And that has actually made a really big difference in my energy, I believe. Because
Oh,
pork has the highest
interesting.
amount of thiamine. And I was also doing bacon before, and I realized it was high histamine. Since I stopped
Yeah.
doing bacon and I started just doing either mostly pork chops, just searing, cooking them slowly and searing them, and they're delicious. And I think that the thiamine was really missing from my life.
Yeah. We have a comment for you. Say, I'm assuming this is talking about the meat, get it below 40 degrees. So I know a lot of refrigerators are set at 42 degrees. So I don't know if it's better to maybe turn the thermostat down on the refrigerator, especially if you've got histamine issues. I have not done that with my refrigerator, but
Okay,
it's
so just
definitely
to keep
worth
it, to never let it get warmer than 42 degrees.
keep it colder. Yeah, that's a fantastic recommendation, to
Yeah,
be
thank you.
honest.
That's a great recommendation. Thank you. I'll be cognizant
Yeah,
of that.
yeah, because we think about our freezers,
Mhm.
but it is good. I'm really glad you brought that up, John, because our fridges, you can set the thermostat lower in our fridge. And I totally forgot until he mentioned that yeah, if the refrigerator is by default set at about 42 degrees. So we can definitely change that. He said a general reference to bacteria growing at temperatures between 140 to 140. So, okay, so keep it below 40.
Okay, I'll try it.
Excellent. That's why you want to
Great.
heat it
Thank
above
you.
140 and you cook it if you're going to cook it. But if you eat it raw, then yeah, okay. So he agrees. He says exactly. We got it.
And I stopped eating leftovers.
You stopped eating leftovers. Okay,
Yeah,
yes, because leftovers, the more they sit. Now, some people have to freeze instantly, freeze the leftovers.
yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if you also have mast activation syndrome because everything you're saying is just, yeah,
So it's
it's so
interesting.
classic.
There is a natural antihistamine made by Apex Energetics, and I started taking it. And it is quercetin, nettles, butterbur, and mangosteen. And
Okay.
I think it has helped with some
Okay.
lingering things
Is that
in my
similar to
body, but it
is that similar to
makes
DHIST?
itch.
Is is that similar to DHIST?
I don't
Or it sounds
know.
like a little different
I don't.
combination from DHIST.
It, yeah, it's a little different. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's a little different. It has mangosteen and it has butterbur. I don't think the DHIST has those.
I don't think it does either. The DHIST has the quercetin, it has NAC, and it has milk, the thistle.
Okay.
Um,
I haven't tried
no,
it.
not the thistle, stinging nettle, and it
Yeah.
has a couple other things. So what's the name of the one you take? I'll put it in the comments.
I believe it's Histo X. I believe.
Histo
Pretty sure.
X. And what brand?
Apex Energetics. I believe it's Apex.
Apex.
If I'm wrong, I'll let you know, but I'm pretty sure it's Apex Energetics Histo X.
Synergetics. Okay.
Histo,
Well,
no,
that's close.
Apex, it's APEX Energetics.
Oh,
It's
energetics.
Yeah.
Got it.
I believe that's
Okay.
the name. But like I said, it really helped with the symptoms. So I know it's a histamine issue plus dermographism. I mean, it's a histamine issue. However, it made the inside of my mouth itch, which was so plants. I'm just like, okay, so I do think that plants were given to us. My theory is plants were given to us as medicine. Herbs are great medicine, but they're not food, right? They're great medicine.
Yeah.
But I think I am having some type of reaction to it, so I don't do it very often. But it does help with some other symptoms, so I'm still just kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, well, it is a process. So I wanted to ask you, I know when we met, we talked, you were telling me that you have a specialty, with kind of a side specialty, I guess, with lab interpretation. And that's something you've really studied and you're very much, an expert in. Is there anything that you notice as far as labs that doctors are just not ordering that they should be ordering, or things that are just missing, like help people connect the dots better?
Yes, that's a big question. There are actually several things. Whenever I see a new patient, that my introductory blood work is about 4 pages long, 3 to 4 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, people normally they come back from the lab and they say, they told me they've never drawn that much blood from anybody.
I mean, I just had 7 vials today, and it was five sticks to get all that blood out of me. So I can imagine it must be like, how many vials does it tend to take?
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you before we got online, and I'll repeat it, is that it's important to read the blood work in a certain way whenever it's such a hard stick, because the stress of that stick and not getting the blood is actually going to change your levels on certain things.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, there are certain numbers in the blood work that will be different. So knowing that it's a hard stick, it'll make me see your blood work in a different manner. Plus, there are simple things like everybody's told to fast, but they're not told to drink water. You need to have a little water in the morning, or else you're going to be dehydrated. If you're dehydrated, also going to change numbers. And some people say it's okay to drink black coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, I say drink black coffee, because if you don't, you're going to have a cortisol. Your cortisol is going to go crazy, and that's going to change other numbers. So I would rather read it knowing that you had the coffee, because you always have it, than read it without the coffee, because that's going to make you look like somebody you're not. I want to see who you are in your daily life, not who you are without coffee.
That makes sense.
And then what did you eat the day before? If you ate a huge fatty meal, and you don't usually eat a huge fatty meal, or if you were fasting, that also fasting is going to change your blood glucose in the morning. I mean, some people's blood glucose will actually spike in the morning with cortisol if they are fasting. So there's just so many different things, and it's very individualized. But if I had to think of just a couple of lab tests that I wish everyone would run, one would be ferritin, which is our body storage of iron. Iron gets a lot of positive press that it doesn't deserve in my book. Iron is very toxic. The ferritin is a test that shows your total body storage of iron. And a lot of iron is stored in the liver. And if you have too much iron stored in the liver, it can cause irreversible liver damage. And so you don't want to take iron unless you know you need iron. And a simple serum iron test, just what's in the blood floating around, is not enough to show if you're deficient in iron. You need ferritin, because if that number is over, I don't want to see it over 100. I mean, sometimes men can be a little bit higher, but
is eating all the red meat a problem, or a potential problem when it comes to your iron and your ferritin?
I haven't really seen that, because it's heme iron. It's not, I need to do a deeper dive on that, quite honestly. But from what I understand, it's not the kind of iron that's going to be as toxic in your system. Your body knows how to handle it. Now, if somebody has high ferritin, I would say don't cook in cast iron skillets, and definitely don't eat dark leafy green vegetables, because it's the wrong kind of iron. The other thing is, speaking about anemia, another blood test that dovetails off of that is B12, because most of the time, if someone's anemic, in my experience, it is a B12 deficiency anemia. And there are ways to see that in regular blood work. There are certain things like the MCV, the mean cell volume. If that is over 90, that's kind of a red flag that you might have a B12 deficiency. So there are certain things in the blood work that will point us in that direction, where then, okay, we might want to do B12. And then there's even further testing on B12. If somebody's B12 comes back normal, especially, and they have all the symptoms of anemia, their iron is normal, B12 is normal, which is almost never happens, because normal B12 starts around 900 to 1200 is where I want to see B12. It's very rare to see normal B12.
So we're basically kind of in general B12 deficient.
Yeah. Well, there's something called methylmalonic acid, which we're kind of getting in the weeds, but basically that's the true test to tell us if your body is using the B12 or not. So if somebody is really anemic and don't know why, I recommend getting that test. And you can get a serum B12 too. It's cheap. But the methylmalonic acid is the test you want to make sure that your body's actually using the B12, because it can be tricky.
Okay. Interesting. And now are there other tests with other vitamins that will show whether or not you're actually utilizing the vitamins, or is it specifically just for B12?
That test is specifically for B12.
Okay. Now, is there a test to see if you're, utilizing vitamin D, absorbing vitamin D?
So vitamin D, I don't know of a test that's showing if you're utilizing it. But there are so many things around vitamin D that are important to look at, because it's not just the vitamin D. Vitamin D is not really a vitamin, it's a hormone.
Right.
And it's made when the sunlight hits the cholesterol in our skin and makes hormone D. And a lot of absorption happens along with magnesium. We talk about the K2 and things, but magnesium is very important when you talk about vitamin D. Historically, vitamin D has gotten a really bad rap for toxicity, right? So you have
Yeah.
all these symptoms of vitamin D toxicity. Well, if you look at all the symptoms of magnesium deficiency, they're eerily similar to vitamin D toxicity.
Mm.
Because if you have too much vitamin D, people start just haphazardly taking things without knowing if they need it, unfortunately. And if you take vitamin D and you don't have enough magnesium, it's going to go in and look for magnesium so that it can be used by the body and cause a magnesium deficiency.
Okay.
So,
And do you find that the normal ranges for magnesium that most labs say are normal are accurate or inaccurate?
so no lab values are accurate. I'll start by saying that. There are two things I want to say about that. One is you need to look at RBC magnesium, the red blood cell magnesium, which is a specialty test. The serum
Mm.
magnesium, what's in your blood, like floating around, but the red blood cell, they can actually see what's in the red blood cell. That's the accurate level of magnesium. And that's
Oh,
very rare.
interesting.
It's a little more expensive and it's very rarely run. Now, as far as the normal values go, every single lab has a different normal range.
Right.
Okay. So you go into your Quest lab, your LabCorp lab, your hospital lab, and they're all going to have a different normal value. And that's because they are taking everyone who comes into that lab, they're throwing out the bottom 2 to 4%, throwing out the top 2 to 4% on average, and averaging everybody
Right.
else together and saying that that's normal. Well, number one, you're getting compared to sick people.
Right.
Healthy people don't normally go get their blood taken at a lab. If you're totally well, why would you go get your blood work done? So the other thing is it's an average. And so one of my favorite stories about this is I think it was around 2007. I remember I had two sisters. They were both in their 50s who came to see me. They're sitting in front of me. They had both had their blood work done. And I ordered the blood work. I told them what to do. They wanted their insurance to pay for it, so they took it to their primary care physicians who ordered it for them. They brought me the lab results. And I remember specifically it was alkaline phosphatase, which is a liver enzyme. It's like the foreman on the job making bone. It's a zinc dependent enzyme. And so you have to have enough zinc for it to be at a healthy level. And if it's too high, it's an indicator of autoimmune disease. So it's kind of an important thing to look at. Well, one of them had it at about 52, I think, 54, 52, and the lab said it was low. The other one, it was 42, and it said it was normal. And I'm like, what can I do? So that, I remember that day very clearly. I was just like, okay, it's true. I just
Yeah.
can't rely on laboratory values. And so the numbers I use are called optimal values, and it's what I was trained with in my specialty, that they're arrived at by looking at only healthy people.
That's a better thing to look at, in my opinion. I agree.
But
And
it's not
it
even just that simple. I'm sorry. Because how old are you? Are you male? Are you
it
female? Are you
right.
menstruating? Are you menopausal? Are you a baby? Like, it's not that simple. You have to take into consideration who is the person sitting in front of me
Mhm.
before knowing how to interpret the lab.
Yeah, and then also we're dealing with the people like us that are carnivores. Like, how does that impact how you look at the labs? I mean, we're
Right.
completely different. We're almost a different species of human, right? because we eat so different. I mean, like, do you even worry with like with yourself as a carnivore about things like vitamin C? Um, we hear a lot all the time about, well, we're not getting enough vitamin C, and I mean, are there issues with things like that with carnivores?
So vitamin C specifically, there is a trace amount of vitamin C in meat, in red meat. So
Okay.
um, also the reason why we need vitamin C, just like the reason why people need fiber, is because they're eating vegetables, right?
Hmm.
If you're not eating vegetables, you don't need the fiber. Your body, your digestion is going to be good. All the digestive issues are going to go away. So with vitamin C, if you aren't poisoning your body, then your immune system doesn't need as much of the vitamin C to find
Okay.
equilibrium. From what I understand, the research, I've done a little bit of study on this, and I can't quote you where I've read this off the top of my head, but from what I understand, there's enough that are in, well, that I'll do raw egg yolks on my meat sometimes,
Okay.
and that's like a multivitamin. So
Okay.
I think that we get what we need in the amounts that we need it. Also from salt. Like I use
Salt.
the Redmond's real salt, or
Yeah.
the salt with trace minerals. You're going to be getting a ton of minerals.
And does that include
I think
vitamin
that,
C?
no, no.
No.
But I
So
don't have any symptoms of vitamin C deficiency. My teeth don't,
yeah.
my gums don't bleed. I'm not having any symptoms of vitamin C deficiency. And early on, when I first started, I will tell you, I did have some. So I would take a little bit of vitamin C every now and then, but I haven't had that probably 8 months. And something else I've noticed is my teeth don't hurt anymore. I used to have teeth pain, and I've
Okay.
noticed I don't have that anymore.
Well, do you think that that was associated with the neurological symptoms you were having when you were suspecting you might be potentially getting MS?
It's a possibility. I think that I associate it with gross mineral deficiency. I think that I was just
Mm,
completely deficient in basically everything. I was very,
yeah.
very ill. And, the body, teeth and bones are not necessary for life. So your body will do
Yeah.
away with that if it doesn't have enough minerals in
Sacrifices
the
it.
brain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. Well, listen, I could go on and on, but should probably wrap this up. Arlene, I love Arlene. Hi, Arlene. She says, I'm using vitamin C along with probiotics and apple pectin to get rid of heavy metal and from that shot. Oh, must be the jab that was so popular over the past 4 years. What do you suggest to get rid of heavy metals?
Okay, so that is a very individual question, and it's a very tricky thing that I don't think is very prudent to just haphazardly like talk about, because
Mm.
a lot of things that get rid of heavy metals can also cause toxicity.
Mm.
Um, Number one thing I would say with heavy metals is make sure you're not re-exposing yourself. Um,
Mhm.
for example, colloidal silver is great as a natural antibiotic, but don't take it every day. I know people who do this, right? It's a heavy metal. Um,
Mm.
Also, make sure that if you use stainless steel pans, you're doing nickel free. Make sure that if you have silver fillings, which are 50% mercury or something like that, go to a biological dentist and have them properly removed. I mean, things like that, things that are the sources that we're getting recontamination. Something else about heavy metals is a lot of people with heavy metals also deal with severe parasite issues. And that's because
Mm.
the parasites sometimes are there to help clean up the heavy metal problem. So the parasites are not always a bad thing. It's bad when there are too many or when they're causing a problem. But if you have heavy metals in excess and you are doing lots of parasite cleansing, you might actually be not be doing yourself a service. So like I say, there are just too many things involved in that to just say, let's get rid of the heavy metal. Like yes, you do need to get rid of them. But I think it's a very individualized thing. It depends on what somebody has already done, the state of health they're in, because a lot of times when you start pulling metals out of somebody, they can get really ill. And it's not something that I like to do a lot. What I prefer to do is to build someone's system up and give them what they need, and the body is going to naturally get rid of what it doesn't need.
Okay.
I'm
That
not a
makes
big fan of
detoxing. Okay. Which is
I'm not.
detoxing. You can feel terrible when you're detoxing. So Arlene says I also use is it Shilajit
Shilajit,
or Shilajit and
Shilajit.
chlorophyll too, but legs hurt last night.
So I don't know if she just started taking it and the leg pain just started hurting, like when she
I know
first just.
Arlene, I'm very familiar with Arlene, and she comments a lot with my videos and comes on a lot of lives, and she has been talking and commenting quite a bit about having leg pain. And it's
Is she
from what I can
carnivore?
recall. Yes. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Arlene, but I think this is something you've been dealing with for a while. Oh, she says the shilajit is the mushrooms. Okay.
The
So
Shilajit is actually a type of, it's almost like a tar soil. It's a resin. It's a resin,
a
and
resin.
it's
Oh,
high in fulvic and humic acids, which are really high in minerals. So a lot of people are using it for minerals and for detoxification. I have done it in the past, and personally, I didn't really see a lot of result, but some people swear by it.
yeah. She said for about a week and a half, her legs were better, but just started hurting again.
And she had already been
So
taking it, I guess.
sounds
So
like it.
maybe it's pulling some toxins out and putting it into the blood.
Yeah, possibly. So
That's
Cindy says, yes, very high in humic and fulvic. I don't know what those are.
exactly the humic and fulvic acids. Mm-hmm.
The acids. Okay. So
They're very
is it
detoxified.
possible? Okay. So possibly she's detoxifying and it's causing some symptoms.
I would slow down.
Slow down. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
especially
okay. Wow.
carnivore, he's doing chlorophyll. Remember, that's a plant, and that is, I don't know what kind of plant, there could be some plant toxins. I just don't know. I don't know. That just comes to
Yeah.
me. The other thing that comes to me is the person who commented about the vitamin C. Just remember that vitamins, if you take too much vitamin C, it will bind to produce more oxalate in the body. So if you are having any kind of oxalate issues, you want to be careful on how much vitamin C you take.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And I know if I've read that oxalates can hang out in your system for quite a while, even after you have not been eating anything that's high oxalate. I've heard
Yeah.
people talk about it can take several years to get rid of the oxalates.
I've heard that
So
too. And I don't know how to quantify that, right? So
exactly.
that's why I
Yeah.
don't really know, like, even to discuss it, because how do I prove that it's oxalates? I just don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, some people actually see the crystals.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, actually, yeah. When I interviewed Lisa Wanderers, that's in Australia, she had been vegan and trying to get rid of rheumatoid arthritis through being a vegan and going through these vegan protocols. She had been doing like a couple green smoothies a day, and then she changed, and she was in a wheelchair and really severely ill. And she went carnivore and cured her RA. No, she had been on biologics and everything for RA, and she's like on no medication, dances, walks all over the place. Yeah. But she went through, she said that she had it coming through her urine. It felt like she was passing kidney stones and she could see the crystals, and then it was coming out of her scalp. She can like go like this and she'd get crystals under her fingernails.
So did she have
So
it? Did she get to a lab to see what it was? Is that how she knows it was oxalate?
she just assumed it was the oxalates from the
Okay.
crystals. Yeah. So I
I
don't know
would
if
love
there's anything else that it
I
would
would
be.
love somebody to take these things in and have them tested to see. That would be
Yeah, I think
amazing.
she's over it. She's over it now. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well, if anybody
that
out there has
happened.
it happen, let's save it. Let's take a look at it under a microscope. Because we
Seriously,
need
yes.
proof.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Oh, I missed a comment from Arlene. She says, yes, it was weird. It was a weird new pain. So today, none of those. So she's not having any pain today. That's good. She said, I
Great.
had healed on carnivore from pain between my knee and my foot, and I was starting to walk more and exercise a little more. And then I took this medication for 2 weeks and my legs hurt last night. Okay.
Oh, it was a
So,
medication.
so yeah. Oh, it's a good chance that that's what it was.
A lot of
So,
medications will cause restless leg syndrome. And because
yeah.
all restless leg syndrome is a mineral deficiency. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
You
Interesting.
need uh, potassium, magnesium, vitamin E. That combination I've seen work really, really well for restless legs.
Okay. So are you still, I know you're covering for your friend, her practice. Are you still also practicing your functional medicine, seeing patients?
Yeah, I work on an individual, just whenever somebody contacts me and asks me if they can have a
Okay.
consult. Yeah.
Okay. So if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
They could email me, um, alternativesforhealth@yahoo.com. Alternatives,
Okay.
plural.
I'll put that in the comments. Alternatives. And then
FOR,
it's FOR. Okay.
FOR, alternatives
Health,
for at Yahoo.
health@yahoo.com. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
and my
it.
goal is to help people figure out what is going on.
Mhm.
There are a million ways, literally 1,000 at least, to treat just about everything. So um, their local naturopath or physician, whoever they want to see, chiropractor, whoever, can help them with treatment. I can help them some if they like. That's just not as easy from a distance,
Yeah.
except maybe um, if they want, if they need some specific products. But I don't tend to use a lot of products anymore. But that's a very individual basis. But my goal is to help figure out what the problem is, and so that's really
Yeah.
where I really enjoy helping people. I can help with the treatment, but what I really enjoy doing is the diagnostics and help people figure
Yeah.
out what's going on.
Well, and that's 90% of the battle.
Yeah.
Once you have it figured out, the treatment is often not as difficult. And also to be able to have somebody that is understanding of the choice to be on a carnivore diet and understands how healing it is really helpful. So Cindy says, I stand corrected about Shilajit. It is referred to as a sticky substance found between rocks in the Himalayas.
Exactly. It's a resin.
Okay. A resin. Interesting that we would even take a resin,
Yeah, you take
but
it in
that's
very, very minute. It tastes not very good. It's like dirt. Yeah,
oh,
it's
it doesn't
very,
sound
very
good.
small quantities. My mom even
Yeah.
gets it in powder. There's some company that does it in a powder of it. I don't know.
Okay. All right. I want to show people your channel, and you're just not with your channel. It's a small channel, but I want you guys to subscribe. It's Dr. Nick Medicine Woman. She's only got a couple videos on there now, but show her some support and give her a subscribe. So
And if you
awesome. All
have
right. Well,
topics that you would love to hear about, I get kind of analysis paralysis. Like, what do I make a video on? And I really like this, just the conversation. And so whenever I sit
Yeah.
down to make a video, I'm like, well, what do I tell people? What do I talk about? And so if there are specific things people want to know about, I would love, like, just give me a topic and I'll tell you what I can about a topic on a video.
That's great. That's great. Once you get over a certain amount of subscribers, you can do live streams. So
Right.
you can
Yeah.
you can interview. And I know one of the things that you and I talked about, which I still want to do, is to do live stream together where you show what a good doctor visit should look like with a new patient doctor visit. And I've volunteered myself to do this and just show all my medical records and show you my labs and let you show everybody what a doctor's visit should look like if it's done properly. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. Arlene says, "Go, Dr. Hewitt!" Clap, 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 and
Aw,
lots of hearts.
you're so
So
sweet.
yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and end things here. And what I'll do, because we did have a very choppy beginning as far as the connection, I will go through. I did do a recording, so I'll go through and see if I can edit the recording enough to take out some of the choppy areas. And maybe repost it to my channel. You can post it to your channel, and that way it'll be a little less tedious at the beginning. But I appreciate those of you who stuck with us, and I know we have people popping in and out during the course of of our live stream, so I really appreciate it. Arlene says thank you very much. And Mika
Thank you for your
says,
question.
thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it. All righty. I'm going to go ahead and end. You hang out with me. Don't go anywhere. And thank you guys for joining us. All right. Bye-bye.